Hello, this is the FS Coach, and in this video, I want to explain how to set up your TDI EA indicator. But before I start, let me explain what TDI mean. So, what you can see on this screen right now is the TDI indicator. Okay, and what it does is that it gives signals based on what is happening within the TDI. Now, I will explain the component of TDI, and you can also watch our YouTube channel. You will see a lot of videos explaining how to trade with TDI. What we have done is just to build a robot that can trade for us just as we like to trade. So first, the TDI comprises of the Bollinger Band, which is this blue line that you can see, which measures the volatility in the market. If you are familiar with technical indicators, you will know that the Bollinger Band widen up when there is high volatility and then contrast when there is low volatility. Just as you can see here, you can see the volatility during this period and you can see how wide the Bollinger Band is, and you can see that there is low movement around this zone, and you can see that the TDI band contrasts. Now, what signal do we get from this? As you can see, there are three types of signal you can get from this EA. You can get the re-entry, you can get the market baseline, you can get the moving average crossover. You can decide to turn on whichever one you want, and I'm going to explain that for you when we are looking at the settings of this robot. First, I'm just trying to make you understand how TDI indicator works. Now, TDI indicator has the Bollinger Band. It has this market baseline, which is this yellow moving average, okay, which measures like the long time trend in the market compared to the green moving average and the red moving average, which are all moving, in in an RSI indicator. All right, this is built on RSI just from backend. Now the signal comes up when the green crosses into red. That is the MA crossover. Okay, MA crossover. When the green crosses into red, either from below to the top or from top to bottom. So you can actually give a sell signal or a buy signal depending on where it is coming crossing from. Also, there's a market baseline cross. So market baseline is when this green crosses above the yellow market baseline. So that is the market baseline signal. And you can see by this green arrow, tick green arrow, tick red. Okay. So these are market baseline crosses. And then the last one is the re-entry. So re-entry is when this green moving average moves out of this Bollinger Band and then cross back in. Okay, and then cross back in, just like you have this green arrow but a bit slant. So this is a re-entry signal, this is a sell re-entry signal. Okay, immediately the moving average cross outside. Okay, this is a sell re-entry signal, and then this is a buy re-entry signal. All right, so you can see the three different types of signal we have. So just for you to have an overview of what the robot is doing. Now let's go into setting our robot. Now, as you can see, there are different types of information you can get from this very nice dashboard. You can see the time frame. For instance, this is on 15 minutes. You can see the current spread. You can see the trend. Now you can decide to turn on the trend or you can decide to turn it off, just like in this case. Now, what the trend does is to uses the 50 period moving average and the 200 period moving average to determine the trend. So if the 50 cross the 200 moving average to the upside, it will only be taking buy signal. So it will take buy, take this buy, take this buy, take this buy, ignoring all this sell. And that's why you can see the long time trend in the market. Okay, it will ignore all these sell signals and only take all these buys that are coming in. And when the market is on a downtrend, just like you can see here, the 50 period moving average crosses below the 200 moving average, it will only take all these cells, all these cell moving average, all these cell moving average. Okay, now the indicator has an inbuilt grid system. This is a grid EA, which means when it gets locked on a particular trade, it continues to take different sell and then close all the sell at a basket TP around this point and you're out of the market. So if the market has already cropped to this upside, it will stop taking sell at this point and then starts taking buy trade. Okay, now let's go into this, just an example. Back tested from September 1st and it's still running. Okay, you can see how it's taking trades. It take buy trade because you can see the trend here is currently up. And in this example, you can see that I have the entry is on, market baseline is on, and the moving average crossover is also on. You don't necessarily need to turn on all these three indicators. You might decide to just turn on maybe market baseline, or you might decide to just turn on moving average crossover. Anyone you want, you can decide to turn on one, you can decide to turn on two. Okay, and you can also see the current profit and loss in the market. You can see the number of grids you have taken. You can see the grid steps. You can see the number of ads. So just like in my settings, it can only add up to only 5 grid step, and that is all. You can see it was taken initially buy, and the mark trend has changed to downtrend, so it started taking only sell trade. Okay, and you can see my TP is just 300 pips. If it has taken any grid, it will reduce the TP from 100 pips to 30 pips, and my stop loss is $200. You can see the number of orders that is opened, you can see the lot size, and you can see the floating profit or loss. So you can also see the profit it has made for the day. You can see the profit it has made for the week. You can see the profit it has made for the month. You can see the profit it has made for the year. All right, so it continues to take this great step until the trade is closed. As you can see, the trend has already changed to upside, which means probably the market just changes to sell and then turn upside. So you just have to wait to close out on this particular trade, and you continue on your trade. So let's see how it's going to close out on this trade. Remember, we cannot have more than 5 steps, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. It currently has 4, and it closed out on all this trade. And what you can see is that since the trend is up, it continues to take only by trade. So this is another week. So you can see just in 15 days, I started this from September 4th. It has made about $3,000 and it continues to trade like this. So now let's go into the settings. I'm going to stop this now. I believe you've seen how the EA works. Without grid, it will take profit at 100 pips. So, so now to the settings, we have the general settings. So the general settings is where you put the time frame. I will recommend you use 15 minutes if you don't like to trade aggressively. If you like your ear to always trade, then you can use 5 minutes. But I would advise you stick to 15 or 30 minutes. That gives you a better signal. All right, so you can turn on your trend just like I mentioned. In this case, it will only be taken by because the 50 has already crossed to the upside. So you can decide to turn it on, or you can put it as off, and then you can turn it off. Then you can also set it, like I said, I'm using 50 and 200 moving average because this is gold. I like to trade with the trend. If you are trading a pair that does not really trend, then you can change it. Then I have the 3 signal turn on. You can decide to turn it off by setting it to false. Depends on how you want the EA to work. You can backtest using each of it to see how it works when it takes the trade, which one is early entry, which one is late entry. Depends on the kind of trading pair you trade with. All right, so also we have the execution guide, which is just for you to manage how the number of trades you get. Okay, for instance, what I showed you earlier, if it takes a trade here and you set this to be 10, it will not take any other trade until after 10 candles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, until after this candle, that is when it starts taking another trade. Now why this can be helpful is that sometimes when you notice market baseline cross and this green cross red signal always comes maybe 1 or 2 candles after each other, just some kind of confirmation. This comes earlier and this comes a bit late, maybe 2 3. Sometimes it depends on how long the trend is late. All right, now if you don't want this one to come up after this one is running, you can just set this to be 2, but it doesn't matter really, because if this one is on, this one will not come up. Okay, it's only on one signal at a time. So you can set it to 0 or you can set it to 2 or whatever. And why it is still good to have it at 0 is that if you set your TP to 100 pips, and let's say for instance, it takes the first trade on this candle and this candle is 100 pips, it takes you out of the market. The next one opens, you set it to 100 pips, and you're out of the market, which means you have two trades because it's only on two candles and you're out. It's good for gold. I don't know. Your pair might take longer to close depend on the number of pips, right? So also to set your splittage and the maximum spread. I set this to 50 pips because this is gold. So 500 is 50 pips on gold. If you are trading like GU, EU, or any other pair, you can set it to 50, and this is 50 pips. Okay. Now let's talk about lot sizing. So lot sizing, you can either use a fixed lot or you can use a risk percentage. All right, so you can use a fixed lot, and at this next line you can put your lot size that you want. So for instance, I start with 0.1, you can decide to use 0.2. If you are trading, some small pairs, AUD card, AUD JPY, you can start with maybe something like 0.4 because they don't really move as much as gold. Okay, and it will take trade from zero point 0.4. You might also decide to use risk percentage, and if you set it to risk percentage, your fixed loss does not really matter. What matters now is the risk percentage. Okay, you can set it to 1%. This is good for you if you are trading with prop firm. You can always rate 1% per trade. Okay, and the next now is now asking you the risk price, which is how many pips do you want me to calculate the 1% from? Because this is gold, I set it to 2000. If you're trading normal pair, you can just set it to, let's say, 50 pips. Okay, which means it will calculate what is the stop loss for 50 pips, then it will calculate the number of lot size that is supposed to use based on risking 1% on your trade. All right, so let's talk about grid. So the grid step is to say, what distance do you want for it to take the next grid step? So as you can see in my own example, I set it to 100 pips, and because this is gold, it moves a lot. So if you are trading small pairs, you can set it to 30 pips or something. If you want to set it to, let's say, 30 pips, just put 30. If you are trading other pair, depending on the code, if it is 5 digits after the decimal point, then you have to set it to be 300. So it depends on your broker. Well, so for gold, I set it to 1000. Then add after initial. So like I said, I only set mine to 5, which means it will only take 5 good steps. It depends. You can set yours to 2, depending on the distance, and you can set it to 100. Let's say if you are starting from 0.01 and um it can continue to take a number of grids so that you can close the trade early. It depends on your choice, but that is what it means. Then the grid multiplier for me, remember I use 1.15, which means it's going to take, the next trade will be 0.1 times 1.15, the next trade times 1.15, and that keeps it simple. Some people can use, let's say, 2, which means if I use 0.1 first, the next one will be 0.2, the next one will be 0.4, the next one will be 0.8. That will quickly destroy your account if you are trading on a port point, for instance, or you have a very small account. So it is good to keep, if you use one, you will keep it flat to keep using the same lot size to for the grid. But if you use 1.15, takes it a little step higher. Now let's talk about the basket TP. So the basket TP is also gives you three options. You can either TP from break even, you can use TP money, and you can use TP equity. So it depends. TP percentage equity, if you are trading with a prop firm, you can set your 1% risk and use your 2% take profit, for instance. So I like to use pips. For gold, I keep it at 100 pips. Depending on the trend, if it's so trendy, you can set it to 200, you can set it to 50 if you want to get out very fast. If you are trading on, you know, pairs that have low volatility, you can just use 20 pips, 30 pips. It depends on your choice. So TP money will get you out when your profit is in $200, and when your TP is percentage of equity, it will only take you out when you have 2% of your equity. Okay, so this really keeps you in check depending on the kind of what your objective is really. So we have stop loss, three options. You can decide to turn off your stop loss totally, and in this case, all your equity is subjected to risk. So it depends if you are using a cent account with a very large amount, you can off your stop loss, but it is not advisable. But just to keep your money in check, use stop loss money. In this case, I've set it to $2,000. So if you can decide to use TP percentage for again, if you are trading on a profile, so you can just take it to 1% and then set your TP to 2%. And if you have four winning, straight winning, then you have passed your challenge. Now to the next one is dynamic TP. So let me explain what dynamic TP is. When your TP is set to TP break even, if you are using TP pips from break even, you can also use the dynamic TP. You can say TP pips from break even only. If you set it to TP money, it will not affect this. If you set it to TP equity, it has nothing to do with this. But once you are set to TP break pips from break even, you can either set it to be true or false. If you set it to false, your TP will only be whatever you have here. But if you have it to be true, what it means is that if the trade does not have any grid at all, it will follow 100 pips, which is what you have here. But immediately it has one grid step, it will reduce the TP. Now, this is good for you to step out of any trade as soon as possible, because when the trend is reversing, you don't know when the trend is going to reverse. And this is just to give you an edge against using grid system. So grid system, one of the disadvantages is that when the trend is changing, it just like what we have here, it just keeps adding, and it will take a very long time before it will trigger your TP before it changes direction. So in this case, you just need a very small reversal and you're out of the market, then you can continue to follow the trend, which is good for you. So I advise you always use TP, the dynamic TP. But if you are using it for profile, you can also try 1% risk and 2% reward to see how you can balance these things up. So basically, this is just to show you the line as it's coming, as you can see the stop loss line and the take profit line, and as it's adjusting, that is what this really means. So you can keep every other thing in check, as this is how the EA works. Then you can click on OK, and there you have it. So you can see the trend, uptrend. It will only take buy signal, it will only take buy trade, and when the trend is down, it will take only sell trade. So imagine when the market is all trending in August, it will only be taking buy trades for you, only be taking buy trades. And when the market is on a downtrend, it will only take down, it only takes sell signal for you. I hope this helps you, to set your EA up, and thank you for buying our EA. Cheers.